Look at some news stories. So Windows 11 has supposedly new ways to activate a log. It says this way I used is actually an old way. But anyway, if you ask Microsoft Copilot if there's a script to activate Windows 11, it will cheerfully tell you hacking techniques. This is one I just tried on my virtual machine. What time does this class end? Well, classes go from 6 to 9. Yeah. Anyway, this is the one I used, IRM, this HTTPS getActivatedWin.iex, and because I had a trial version, it just gave me another 90 days. But anyway, they just think it's kind of funny that the Microsoft AI will tell you how to hack Windows to some extent. And this was very interesting. The police in Britain have just demanded access to all the encrypted data. So that's why Apple is removing their encryption product from the country, saying, well, so users know that you cannot have end-to-end encryption. And this research paper studied and found that more than half of all the cybercrime prosecutions in Britain are police misusing their power to look at data they shouldn't be looking at. And by the way, Erica, perhaps you're trying to get hands-on help. I do that starting at 7:30. Anyway, all right. So, and the police in France want to do the same thing. They want to stop letting people use encryption. Data is not encrypted. That's right. If you use iPhone iCloud backup in the UK, or for that matter in the US, it's not encrypted by default. It's encrypted in transit, but on Apple's end, it's either not encrypted or it's encrypted with a key that Apple has. Apple can get it. However, you can turn on end-to-end encryption as an optional security enhancement. So most people aren't using it anyway. But in the UK, they have ordered Apple not to allow anybody to end-to-end encrypt it. So Apple's now come out and announced that if you're in the UK, you can't even turn it on. You can't use it at all. Although the people that used it previously, I think there's no way for them to force you to turn it off. But anyway, no new users can use it. And it looks like France is trying to do the same thing. This is an endless battle. Police agencies, law enforcement agencies always want to have access to the data, but these people that want to serve the customers always want to encrypt it, because if you open a back door for the police may misuse it, and criminals may find out how to get in, and that happens all the time. So security experts are always saying don't put any backdoors into the encryption, but there's endless pressure from law enforcement agencies to put it in. Yeah, it would be interesting if it was by default, and you would think if anybody would do that, it would be Apple, but for some reason it's not on by default. So this is an interesting idea. Stable Diffusion makes images, and the way it does it is you take a bunch of images of the type you like Picasso's, and then you gradually add more and more noise to it in 1,000 steps until it's total noise, and you train your model to clean noise out of it. And then to make a new one, you just start with random noise and remove the noise, and it will turn into a Picasso. That's called Stable Diffusion. That's the diffusion model. And now what these guys are doing is doing that with text, which had never occurred to me. Instead of just images, they're creating text by this, starting with random noise and taking the noise out. And they say it's faster and it creates all the answer all at once, instead of word by word the way the other ones do. You presumably want a backdoor in Signal too. Yes, it sounds like the French do want a backdoor in Signal. I know that's why the guy that made Telegram got in trouble in France, but what he did was he rubbed their nose in it. Telegram advertised that they will never give any data to law enforcement no matter what. And they basically advertised their services for criminals. And then the guy went to France, Pavel Dura, or I think that's the guy that made it, and they said they're going to lock him up if he doesn't start answering law enforcement queries. And so he decided to cooperate with law enforcement more. What does noise mean? Noise is random pixels in images, like you see here. There's white noise covering up this image. And in text, it means replacing the words with some kind of masking word. And it's not possible to have gradual steps of noise so much. And they discussed that here. They have some way of defining gradual denoising of things. But it's an interesting issue. Anyway, it's an interesting idea to use this alternative technique. This is like quantum computing. There are two kinds of quantum computers. One kind does things in a sort of step-by-step way, and another kind does something called simulated annealing, where you just heat it up to where everything is random, and then you cool it and let it settle down like ice freezing. That's one way to do computing, and that's like this. where you just start with the noisy state and you let the noise quiet down until it settles into some kind of stable position. So Instagram, for some reason, changed Reels into just playing horrible stuff nobody wanted to see. Many people said, I normally see something innocent like cat videos or cooking, and now I'm seeing gruesome murder and violence all over the place, and they haven't explained why it happened. But a bunch of people are complaining this happened on Instagram, so something has gone badly wrong with their algorithm. The FDA, under RFK Jr., has canceled the meeting to select flu strains, and I just heard on the Rachel Maddow podcast, they also did kill our aid to other nations, like having Ebola outbreaks. This was part of U.S. aid. We go to Africa, we have doctors that go there to help them when they have Ebola outbreaks, and they're having an Ebola outbreak in Africa now, and we have not sent anybody. Elon Musk at Trump's cabinet meeting stood up and said, we canceled the Ebola program by accident, but we reactivated it right away. There was no interruption, and that is a lie. They canceled it, and they did not reactivate it. And we have not sent the doctors and help that we normally do to help prevent Ebola from spreading. That program, all U.S. aid is frozen, and that was part of U.S. aid. So we're not doing anything to help any other nations at all. This is the Trump model. That's what he calls America first. And of course, a lot of our aid to other nations, in fact, benefits us, like stopping the spreading of dangerous diseases, but Trump doesn't see it that way. Anyway, so they're apparently not preparing for next season's flu shots. The meetings have been canceled. This is probably because RFK Jr. does not believe that any vaccines work. He thinks they're all poison. So I don't know if we're going to have flu shots next year. The government does prepare the flu shots, and I rather doubt that this current government will bother to do that. It may not matter to you folks much. It matters more to old people like me. Anyway, so Trump says he is going to turn on the tariffs. Remember, he threatened Mexico and Canada with 25% tariffs. And then when they made meaningless symbolic gestures, like Mexico said they would send 10,000 troops to the border, which they'd already sent like months before in the Biden administration, but that way Trump could pretend he had won something. So he put it off for a month, but that month is up, and now he says he's going to turn them on March 4th. So this will greatly harm the economies of Mexico and Canada, and it will greatly harm our economy. All the experts on Wall Street think this will send us into a recession. Also, I listened to an economist from New York University, and he said the Wall Street grew by, I think, 20 or 25% the last 2 years, which is insane. That's too fast. And he says the entire U.S. stock market is greatly overvalued now, and it needs to have a correction for the price falling. So this is the number one thing Trump watches, because Trump does not represent normal people at all. He hangs out at Mar-a-Lago, where you have to pay, I think, something like $100 million to get in. You have to pay some huge amount of money to be a member. So the only people he talks to are rich people. That's why he said bankers came up to me and say, you have to get rid of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They're like, they're making it hard for me to do my banking. And that's why all of his rules are to like remove consumer protections and remove punishment for fraud and crime, because his peers are the robber barons that are committing all that crime. So he looks very, very much at the stock market. Most people in America don't own any stocks, so the stock market doesn't really matter to them, but the rich people own stocks, and they really care about the stock market. That's why Trump's always very focused on keeping the stock market up, and but the tariffs are going to take it down. But he has some belief that the tariffs gain net money for the country, which the economists say is not true. I guess we're going to find out. He thinks he can turn on tariffs and have no income tax, and the economists I listen to say that this is not true at all, and if he tries it, he's just going to cause a big recession. So I guess we're going to see. So China is getting better at attacks. 10 years ago, we used to say China used pretty rudimentary attacks on us, but they're showing up very good skills. China just put out an AI that was better than ours and much cheaper. We're trying to isolate ourselves from China and embargo the high-tech trade and such, pretending that if we don't give them high-tech information, they won't have it. But it's more like the opposite. China is racing ahead. They are not slouches. Their hacking capabilities are getting better. And they saw that China-linked intrusions jumped 150% in 1 year from 2024 compared to 2023. And they're hacking everything, and they're using more and more sophisticated techniques. So is that why he's introducing the gold card? Well, The gold card just lets you pay $5 million to gain citizenship, and I think a lot of nations have that. Like when Trump won in the first time, like a lot of people, I thought of fleeing the country, and in one place I'd like to go is New Zealand, but New Zealand requires you to pay like $2 million to move in and become a citizen. So it's quite common that countries do this. They don't want poor people moving in, so they want you to move in if you have a lot of money, or if you can prove you have a special skill. I might be able to get in on being a cybersecurity teacher. And I understand there was a previous program where you could get a visa by investing enough money in a business here. So Trump makes it sound like a brand new thing, and it sounds really financially corrupt and stuff, but it's not really that different than what we already had, I think. This is generally, most nations feel this way. If somebody rich wants to move in, why not? They're only really worried about poor people moving in who will like go on welfare, I guess. Anyway, so that's enough of the news. Let me stop this.